Hi, I'm Ros Cardinal, Managing Director of Shaping Change. Now, I had an excellent question asked by a coaching client just recently. She said, Ros, my team leaders won't make decisions. They come to me all the time for me to tell them what to do. How do I encourage them to come to me with solutions, not problems? And this is something that I get asked quite a lot by people because it's a relatively common issue. So let's unpack it. Now, I asked this coaching client what happens when people come to her with problems. Guess what? She tells them what to do. Why do you think this is the case? Now, my client, along with many, many other people in the world at the moment, has an issue with being busy and being time poor. And at the end of the day, it's easier and quicker for her to tell people what to do than to work through the issues with them. So the solution here is to slow down, to speed up. Think of it as making an investment of time in this person rather than what we tend to think, which is it's just something that comes in and it's sucking my time. It's about investing in those people. Because the interesting thing that happens is that if you spend more time encouraging people to think through and you work with them and coach them around how to make better decisions, is they start to do that. And then they come to you less and less often, or they come to you with that solution, they've already thought it through. Or at the very least, they come to you with a couple of options they've been considering and just want you to help brainstorm with them the final answer. Now, this sounds pretty easy, but there are other things getting in the way. My client tends to be a bit of a perfectionist, and she'll tell you this quite happily herself. Now, she admits that when people bring her a solution, she automatically looks at it for what's wrong with it. So she's seeing the solution through the lens of it's not good enough, it's not right, not how she would do it. So the challenge here for her is accepting that as long as the decision's 75 to 80% there, as long as it won't make the situation worse, as long as it's not going to cause issues for the organisation, it actually gives that person a safe place to practice and learn decision making, even if it's not what you would do. Now, when someone brings you a decision and you tell them there's a better way to do it, two things happen. It makes the person doubt their ability, and it reinforces that you, the leader, have the monopoly on all the good ideas. And what this does to people is it makes them come to you for solutions. Now, even if you know there's a better way to do it, let them do it their way, and then do like a post-implementation review afterwards. Coach them through what they did, what happened, was there a more optimal outcome possible, and how would that be achieved, and so on. Now, there's something else getting in the way for one of her team leaders, and it plays out like this. So my client called on this team leader in a team meeting for some information, and she said she didn't know and she'd have to find out. My client was really surprised at this because she said it's something pretty basic and she should have had it to hand in the moment. So my client asked the team leader about it immediately after the team meeting, and she had everything there just off the top of her head. So my client asked what happened, and the team leader's response was that she can't think clearly when she's put on the spot. Now, what's going on? The team leader, as all people do, has some sort of history there. She's got a fairly strong fear-threat response to being put on the spot. There will be something in there for her about being wrong, about failing in front of other people, in front of her peers. And this threat-fear response is wired into our brains. And it's there for a really good reason. It's evolutionary and it stops us from being killed. So if you think about a scenario where you are about to cross the road and you take a step off the curb and you hear a horn, car horn blast. Now, you don't have to think about that. You just jump back onto the curb automatically. You jump out of the way. Because your brain perceives the threat and it basically takes care of it. Now, that's done through our limbic brain, through our emotional processing, and it's really, really fast. It's basically designed to stop us getting killed. A stimulus happens and we respond to it immediately. Now, our thinking brain, the part of our brain that makes logical decisions, the executive centre, the front of the brain, prefrontal cortex, thinks slower than that. So if we allowed that prefrontal cortex to run the show when this happens, what we'd be doing is we hear a horn, we hear a noise, and our brain runs through, where have I heard that before? Makes a connection, that's a car horn. Then it thinks about, what does a car horn actually mean? Well, a car horn generally means that, the person driving the car is wanting to alert somebody. Maybe they're trying to alert me. By the time you've gone through that thinking process, you've already been run over. So there's a huge advantage to letting our limbic brain, our emotional brain, run the show when that happens. Basically, a threat happens, we respond to it really quickly. But what happens here is the team leader's brain is reacting to being put on the spot in the same way as it would be if it heard that car horn and was confronted by a bear. We've got a fight, flight, or freeze response. Her brain floods with chemicals. The emotional brain takes the wheel. So now she literally can't think. The fear that the brain is trying to protect her against comes true because she can't think and she feels like she's made a fool of herself. And this reinforces that being put on the spot is not safe, and it reinforces the response. So it gets stronger next time. So what my client can do is this. Seeing as being put on the spot is the trigger, we need to reduce the trigger. Give her a heads up before the meeting so she can prepare. If it comes up spontaneously during the meeting, ask the question as soon as you can and give the person time to think before you circle back. So something like, can I please have updates on whatever, and start with somebody else to give her a chance to think it through. So when you come to her, she's prepared. Because the biggest gift you can give someone in your team is the feeling of being safe. Remove the triggers that create a threat response, and you'll have people who do their best thinking, their best decision making, and get their best results because you're letting them bring their best thinking brain to the table. Now, this is a snapshot of some of the things that I discussed with this client, but I thought it would be useful for many leaders when you ask the question, why do my people come to me for decisions all the time? I'm Ros Cardinal. Thank you for joining me.